Hello everybody and welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the channel. My name is Dominic. I'm the host of the Android Factory. As you can see here on screen, we don't really have too much going on. We have a pretty simple layout here. A couple views defined, our root element, the text view, and the button. Quickly looking at the XML, there's really nothing here. Constraint layout, text view, button. And today we're going to talk about a pretty powerful little tool called the CountDownTimer. And let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So as you could expect, this is a timer that you can or an object that represents a timer that you can tell how long you want it to run for and at what interval you want it to refresh. So we can see here that there is a countdown timer inside of the Android operating system package. We can see though it is abstract, so we can't just create a regular good old object here like this. We actually need to create an instance of it or an extension of this by doing object colon. And then inside of the constructor here, we have two parameters we need, right? So let's just call it for 5 seconds. Again, this is measured in milliseconds. So that's why we have the 5,000, 1,000. Perfect. And then as we fill in the constructor arguments there, we now get this little error here that we need to implement these members. Pretty straightforward. There are just two functions that we need to implement here. On tick, this is, I hate how they do P0. This is the remaining amount, if I can spell, this is the remaining amount of time left on the timer. And then this what happens, this is the function that'll get invoked when the timer runs out, right? So we can just very easily say, we'll set the text view to just say done. And then in the meantime here, we can do text view.text equals, let's just go with remaining.toString. And we could run it and this would work just fine, but we are putting this inside of the onCreate here, so just a little bit of Android awareness. It's probably best to do this outside of just immediately onCreate because the user doesn't necessarily see the application at this point. So we're going to go ahead and assign this to be a latent init var. Let's just call it timer. It'll be a countdown timer. And inside of the onCreate, we will initialize this here, but we're not going to go ahead and start it or do anything. And instead, we're going to, in onStart, we can call timer.start. And then again, as awareness, or Android awareness, we can do the opposite here for onStop. We can do timer.stop, finish. Cancel is the one I was looking for. And in this example, it's not really going to be super important, but just something to recognize, from the Android perspective, we kind of want to hook into these different lifecycle events and all that kind of stuff. So, this is just keeping that in mind. There is a function down here that we might use in the future here, just get a random color. We just simply generate a random integer there, or sorry, a random color by setting the red, green, and blue values to 255. But as you can see over here, you can see this counting down, and you can see that it's not exactly happening at every single second, right? 39, 29, 86, 1985, 984. And again, this was the milliseconds that was remaining inside of this this on tick. And so it's not usually the end of the world, but it's something to be aware of from the perspective of, this is kind of just a best estimate of how quickly you want this to trigger. It's up to the system and up to the different scheduling tasks and whatnot to actually try to get this to run at a second or 1,000 milliseconds, but just be aware that it might not be perfect here. So this might not be the greatest example as far as just printing out the remaining amount, at least when you want something pretty. However, if you were to do something that's maybe, we could speed this up quite a bit. Maybe we'll put it at 50. It'll start to look like, like a stopwatch almost. And that looks like a stopwatch that's a little bit delayed. So I guess if we go all the way down to the countdown of 1, you'll start to see that kind of looks exactly like a stopwatch, right? So you could, format that accordingly, and you could show, 3.2, 3.1, 3.0 seconds, etc. And you can kind of do with it what you will. But in this example here, I think I'm okay with just 1,000, and maybe instead we can set our root. We could say maybe set background color to the get random color to ARGB here, just translating that random color into something that it can display. And as you can see here, we're just oscillating between a couple different randomly generated colors, and eventually we get to done. So this might not be the greatest example of something you'd want to do in the UI, but it is pretty helpful, if you want to incorporate a timer somewhere along the lines of, while someone's doing some kind of a quiz, or if they have a certain amount of time left to complete something, you could set this up to however you want. It is pretty helpful being able to set it down to 1 second, and you can roughly get, a 1 second counter. But yeah, that's about it for this one. Short, sweet. If you enjoyed it, please give a thumbs up. If you are brand new, please consider subscribing. We're going to continue this in future episodes where we're just going to do maybe a few different things in on finish, or maybe make this a little bit more interesting. And so I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.